Hello YouTube, Brian here from NY Blade EDC, and as you guys can see on the table, something a little different from what I usually do. This is the Olamic Wayfarer 247, and it was on loan from my good buddy Vern Dog. Go give him a like and follow on Instagram. He's nice enough to let me check out his expensive Olamic. So let's get into it. So the blade, 3.51 inches of M390. This one has like a stonewash, almost basically the equivalent of like a hinder working finish, which I actually have right here, so I can give you a quick comparison. They're very similar. The hinder has a little bit more stonewash, I guess, more aggressive stonewashing, but we're not getting into that. So M390, nice cool little stonewash bead blast finish on the blade, and then a 4.77 inch titanium, flamed titanium handle, which is awesomely done. I love flamed titanium. It's one of my favorite things to have as a handle finish. So overall 8.12 inches, and it weighs 5.15 ounces. I tried to see if there was different weights, because some of them come with these speed holes. Some of them have like a rock pattern and they're solid, so I didn't know if they had listed any different weights. I couldn't find any, even on Olamic's website, and DLT I checked, Blade HQ didn't have anything. So what I saw is what I went with. So 5.15 ounces is what they mark these as, and I don't have a scale to give you a weight on this exact one, but that's about what it feels like, about 5 ounces or so. So we'll get into a size comparison here. I'll move this up a hair. I already had this out and showed you. This is the XM18. This is the 3.5 inch version. I will pop out the 3 inch just to show the difference. So that's the 3 inch. There's the Olamic and the 3.5 inch. We'll get these out of the way and put the next one on. Next one is the Spyderco PM2. It's a typical one on here. So you can see the Olamic is a hair shorter overall length, has way more cutting surface. Sorry, I just saw it looked like there was a chip in the blade, but it's just the way the light's hitting it. But yeah, as you can see, the blade's about the same length, but the cutting surface is way more on the Olamic. But the handle length for the Spyderco with that forward choil is a little longer. Get that out of the way. I have a Benchmade 940-1, which overall length is fairly similar. The Olamic is actually a hair longer. The camera angle shows it about the same length, but from what I can see, the Olamic is a touch longer. I have one more here for you. This is the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, which the Ritter Hogue and this seem to be exactly the same just by eyeing it. I don't know the length on this by heart. Someone that's good at giving size comparisons is Metal Complex. He does an awesome job with that. I should take notes from him. But all right, size comparison done. I have my rating system all done. I had added up all the scores. Let's get into it. Size, I have a size rating of 13. So obviously the 3.51 inch blade is in my wheelhouse. Love that length. It's got this nice cool flat grind. I love how it kind of comes up like that. But it's got a nice cutting edge, full handle on it. I'll get into the Ergos on it in a little bit, but it doesn't take up too much room in the pocket. But because of this sweep in the blade handle, or the knife handle, it does take up a little bit of room in the pocket. And the way it sits with the clip, it does make it a little bit tough to get into your pocket if your pocket isn't really wide. So having other things in there would be a little tough battle to choose if you want to have this knife, or if you want to carry like flashlight or something. This makes it a little tough just because of that heavy sweep, that belly to this handle. So a size rating of 13, definitely a good size. Ergos, so this is where it's lacking for me. I'm not saying they're bad by any means. They're definitely not bad. They're actually surprising for how sweeped this handle is. I thought they would be a little worse, but what I can do is I can get a full grip on it, but my fingers feel pinched if I try to get it in that hump, but where my fingers naturally lay on it is my pinky lays on that hump, and it just feels awkward. It just feels like there's a hot spot there, and this clip also creates a hot spot at the same time. So I'm getting one on this side and in the palm of my hand. So the ergos are a little off for me. Definitely not terrible. Could be better. Could be a lot worse. I've held a lot worse. So 10.5 for the ergos. So not terrible. Fit and finish. So this knife I looked over pretty good. I didn't find too much. Actually, I only found one thing that would really interest me. It's not anything that messes with the integrity of the knife, but as you can see, the lockup is fairly early, but very solid. Zero blade play side to side, no blade play up and down. I've hit it. It doesn't fail. Lock failure is not a thing on this. The grinds are even. The bevels are even. The tip, he must have stabbed this. Knowing Vern, he must have stabbed this into something. So there's a little burr on the tip there, but yeah, so factory edge, he told me. And it's actually fairly polished for a factory edge, if I may add. It's pretty shiny, so that's pretty cool. But milling on this was fairly decent until I noticed in the corner there, see the lock bar milling where that first angle turns down towards the pivot. If you can look and see, hopefully it focuses. There's a hair, it looks like a drill bit was used that was too big for it, and they took it right back out. And then the same thing with that other corner. It won't focus that well, but it just looks like they used a drill bit for those corners that were a bit large for the rest of the milling. So it looks like they took a little chunk out on both sides of this milling bar, or the lock bar, excuse me. And it's not anything to mess with the integrity of the knife or the safety of the knife or nothing, and the functionality, but it's just a thing that caught my eye. And with fit and finish, I'm trying to be picky. I'm trying to catch everything. But other than that, it's centered perfectly. The jimping is beautifully done. I love that jimping. It reminds me of the XM18 jimping, which is a comparison I've been making a lot this video, but it's very similar. Obviously, the XM18 has a little smaller of jimping, or larger, excuse me, a larger jimping, but it feels very familiar. Like, it feels almost identical. But yeah, so moving on. Fit and finish, I gave it a 14. Everything looks good besides that milling on the lock bar cutout. So, action. I said that like a movie director. Action. 13 out of 20. And I think the cool thing about this knife is the flipper tab. Even though I've slipped off of it a few times, I wish there was a little jimping on there or something, but I've slipped off of it. But when you get it right, that detent is perfect and it flips right out. It's not the smoothest knife I've ever handled, because I'm not saying it has to be drop shutty. Like, that's not a thing for me. So as you can see, it doesn't drop shut unless I give it a good wiggle. It does double clutch pretty bad. That is the one thing I've noticed. So when you don't get it far enough, which I'm doing now, but it double clutches on the detent ball right there. So, which that's user error, but it could have been fixed in simple design change. But so my thing is with it is when I'm closing it, it seems to be jerky. As you can see, I'm trying to go as smooth as possible. As you can see, it's kind of jerky. I don't know what this is on. I should have looked beforehand. I believe it's bearings, but I'm not 100% sure. These are those things that unscripted and unplanned videos have an issue with. You go in unprepared, and that is on me. But action, 13 out of 20. And Vern did say he runs his knives a little tight. I didn't mess with his pivot. Obviously, I can't either way because I don't have that tool. And he meant to send it with it, but I wasn't gonna mess with his pivot anyways. I don't like messing with people's knives. I don't take their knives apart. If you loan them to me and I barely use them, I just kind of get a hang of them, fidget with them. That's about it. So moving on to price. So price, I found a few prices. So they range anywhere from as cheap as $4.95 is what I found, and that is kind of similar to this. This one, The closest I could find to this one was about $5.95 with the speed holes, the flame titanium, and it just had a satin or whatever he calls it for his finish. It looked like a satin blade instead of this, but it didn't have bronze, but it looked almost identical, and it was $5.95. So what's cool about Olamic is you can actually basically make your own knife. You can tell them what kind of finish you want on the handle. You want this kind of anodizing, you want this blade finish, and you can get all sorts of things. So what's cool about it is the personalization. You can make your own knife and still not be in that. I mean, you kind of are in the custom price range, but not like to the $1,200 custom price range that you would see. So $495, and I've seen upwards of $800 plus. So you can get pretty expensive. It all depends on what you get on the handle and with the blade finish and the blade grinds. That's what really determines the price. So with that kind of gave it a point. I love how it has the customizability and still isn't too terribly expensive, I could say, for basically a custom knife. So I gave it a price of 13.5 out of 20, and you add those all up and you get 64 out of 100. So this knife could be better. Definitely not my favorite, but I still like it. So maybe if I find one for the right price or the right finish, I might pick one up. But at the moment, I'm kind of just going with it, you know what I mean? I didn't mean to mention this thumb hole or this opening here. Not really meant for spidey flicking. It's kind of chamfered out. So little final note here, that little chamfer doesn't allow you to really grip that hole to flick it out. You can, every once in a while I get it, but it's not, there you go. It's not really the best method. So that's another thing for action I forgot to mention. But all right, final thoughts. If you think you want one of these, check them out. They're definitely quality pieces. Expensive, but they're only a touch more than a Hinderer. They're a little less for the cheaper models than a Chris Reeve. So I say they fit within that price range. If you're thinking about picking one up, you're on the fence, snag one, get yourself one, check one out, and probably you'll enjoy it. So I want to thank you guys for watching. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't done so. Jeez, excuse me. And I hope to see you guys for the next one. Thanks for watching.